about content, the biggest marketing story today is about who owns the stories themselves. Look at Netflix's pursuit of Warner Brothers, an 80-plus billion move that brings together streaming distribution, studio production, and some of the most valuable IP in the modern culture. This could read simply as another content play, buying larger catalogs, strengthening a streaming offer. But it might also point something broader. When a distribution platform moves this close to production, IP ownership, and franchise logic, it raises a question we haven't really had to ask before. Are we watching marketing and entertainment move into the same system, not conceptually, but operationally? To explore this, I am joined by Renato Franchi. Renato has worked across brand, media, and commercial strategy at the intersection where content decision meet business outcomes. I wanted this conversation to be exploratory, not about predicting outcomes, but about interpreting what these shifts actually mean. Renato, hi, and how are you? Welcome to Poster.
Thank you so much I'm perfectly fine, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Renato, a few words about what you're doing now and what is your past in media, strategy, content, IP?
So now I consider myself as a transmedia consultant. So basically, my experience lies in publishing, international publishing, and also entertainment, broader sense with tabletop gaming. I worked many years for Panini, so an entertainment brand that does stickers and cards in Europe, South America, and also North America, and in comics. So I worked for many years with Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and also the Japanese production, so manga content. Then I moved also to tabletop gaming. And from that on, I kind of fell in love with the concept of developing IPs, developing transmedially the content in many different formats, whether it's animation, live action movies, or against comics or tabletop. This is what I love to do.
So let's define two things that you've just mentioned. Let's define what's IP.
Yeah.
And what's transmedia?
So an IP basically is a intellectual property. So it's a piece of content that can be a story. Think about Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a clear example of what's an IP. It's a story that was created on books, and then it evolved, and it developed. Also, the Disney characters are traditional examples of IPs. It's a content that has a value, of course. So it's created by human beings and is registered, so it's a property. It's something that you can market, you can sell, you can buy, and you can develop. And transmedia is exactly the way in which a content or an intellectual property expands. So in a way that is not just replicating the content in other forms, but is developing the content.
It's actually developing a business ecosystem, right? Or integrating any other things, interacting with the world, basically, in the form of that particular character, let's say, or as it is called, an IP. So I think the conversation about IP is super relevant right now, not only in the context of, bigger media shifts, as I mentioned at the beginning with Netflix and Warner Brothers. I consider it to be signaling something much bigger that is happening in overall attention economy, and also shifting the value, where the value of that IP is being created and who owns that. So I want to ask you a question. Say, I mentioned at the beginning, and this whole conversation between me and you started actually after you commenting on this deal that is, I'm not sure if it's already finalized or it's still being pursued between Netflix and Warner Brothers, which signals that Netflix gets very close to an IP business.
Definitely.
So why is it happening? How do you interpret that move? Why are they so interested? And why, on the other hand, Warner Brothers are interested to partner with someone like Netflix?
Well, you're exactly right. The problem is that for a distribution company, what makes the difference, especially if we are all going digital. So everything right now is accessible at every time. But what's beginning to become precious as gold is the content, is the IP, is the value that you have, and is becoming increasingly difficult in modern world to create IPs, because you have you have to spend a lot of money, you have to do a lot of investment, a lot of try and error to create IP. Look at what Netflix did for many years. They created a number of IPs, but you remember probably 3, 4. Stranger
and they didn't
Things.
fly. Yes,
Yeah,
Stranger
yeah.
Things is the only one that actually has started to become absolutely popular in actually this year, I think, right? But apparently it was
It created.
it
It was. I
created
believe
well.
it was kinda creating was an IP in the making for sure. But for many years they didn't try to exploit them and to develop them also the way they should. Now they are on a full transmedia program with Stranger Things. You have Stranger Things in gadget, in merchandise. You have pop-up exhibition. All this kind of ecosystem is crucial if you are developing a business that's an entertainment business. So Netflix wants to shift from clearly from a distribution perspective to being an entertainment company, a media company. So for sure it's a signal of something big in the making. It's also the first time that we are seeing something that can be compared to a certain extent to Disney if the deal falls through. Is going to be the first real competition that Disney has ever had in his own life. So it's really a signal of time changing. For Warner Brothers, same thing. They were lacking all the other part that Netflix has. The platform, the eyeballs that Netflix has, that can put on the plate, is something that Warner Brothers is definitely in need of.
If this deal goes through, Netflix wouldn't just license stories. It would own the conditions under which stories are created, scaled, and monetized. Warner Brothers brings decades of IP, production infrastructure, and franchise logic. Netflix brings global distribution, data, and direct audience relationships. Together, this is not a media company. It's a closed-loop attention system. Why has it become so important for an IP company to actually get an access to tech, as well as, I think, audience and the attention that Netflix probably represents from its side? Why has it become important right now?
I think that right now the way you have to approach the audience it's becoming increasingly difficult to understand from a traditional media company, for sure. And Netflix has an experience being more close to the real audience, being more close on how to communicate to the audience.
The consumption habits.
The consumption habit. How do you reach them? Because in a traditional media company that does movie, this part, okay, you do traditional marketing, but that's it. Netflix has to fight day after day for the attention. So it's very, very engaged with the audience, with different media approach on marketing. That is something that Warner Brothers has lacked for the past maybe 20 years. That's part of the huge problem that Warner Brothers was facing the last couple years. Yes.
So why do you think, so I've heard the different opinions about that, and why do you think, some experts see this still as just an entertainment or a content deal, rather than a big shift that is happening in the attention economy?
No, for me, it's definitely a big shift. It's not just a matter of content. It's not just Netflix acquiring a piece of content. It's acquiring
or a catalog, let's say.
Yeah, it's not the catalog. The problem is that it's starting to think of itself as someone that's holding IPs, that's holding value, and has to monetize values not only through the medium where it excels, which is subscription and TV-based entertainment. So it's the idea of acquiring content, but to develop as a more broader entertainment company, which is something that Netflix has never been. It was a subscription-based system with some IPs in the making, but is a strong decision of saying, okay, we want a core library of IPs to develop and to nurture, and also opens up a world of possibilities. Think about what I was discussing on LinkedIn, think about theme parks. Now Netflix can have its own theme park and it will be totally legit with the number of IPs that it's creating. It can have access to a whole network of licensing deals that can expand the visibility of the brand and can empower the brand and again create equity for the IPs. So it's a radical shift in how Netflix wants to operate on the market.
And this is all happening not in isolation. We've seen Amazon acquire MGM, folding a historic studio in its IP into Prime's ecosystem. We've seen Disney take full control of Hulu, consolidating distribution data and brand narratives. Across the board, tech platforms and legacy studios are rewriting the rules of IP ownership and audience engagement. And so what's the deal with the entertainment? What do you think? So why, I mean, Netflix is probably, we can understand. So Netflix partially, right, probably tapped into IP back in the days, trying to create their own intellectual property to own, to develop their stories, but probably stopped by focusing more on the distribution model, which they succeeded now, but now recognizing that there's a huge potential in actually acquiring the actual process of how IPs are creating and owning those IPs and excelling in those IPs. So what's the deal with the entertainment then nowadays?
I believe everything is converging, not only entertainment, but also marketing. We are witnessing the creation of ecosystem, as you were mentioning. You cannot go by verticals anymore, and it's true for everything, but mostly for entertainment, which is the guiding light for this type of industry, and we are going to witness more and more integration. So I'm expecting for media company to grow broader and to incorporate vertically everything that's related to their IPs and how the IPs are developed, which is not something, it's not something incredibly new. But if we think that, for example, another very famous IP, Star Wars, was basically saved by the toys. The reason we have the second and third movies of Star Wars movie were by toys, because the movie wasn't making enough money.
That's right.
But the toys were, and that's exactly how it is. It is still, in today's world, even more. The problem is not you're probably going to lose money with the main media, or you're going to break even. But the real business is in everything you can generate around that media. So if you're able to build a property, and it's not just a single movie.
That's, I think, nails it down, right? It's the whole deal behind the entertainment. It's not only about the content itself, and not actually the character itself. It's about how can you excel that character in different formats, right? In different forms as well, and what type of businesses you can actually execute with this particular IP. And this also explains why it is important to own the IP, right? Not just renting it. Right?
You're playing with someone else's toys. If you don't own the IP, you're basically paid with someone else's toys. Remember, Netflix at the beginning was developing shows for Marvel Comics, and then they simply said, no, we want to move them to Disney Plus, so you get cut out, and you don't have a say in that. So you need to have the ownership, because the ownership is where amazing happens. You can guide the IP, you can try to bring it to younger audiences, to new audiences, in ways that you simply cannot if you don't own the IP. If you don't own the IP, you do basically what you are allowed to do.
How difficult or easy it is to actually tap into an IP that is going to be another big thing? So basically the question is how difficult it is to develop an IP and what it takes.
To develop is very easy. To make it work, to make it resonate, to be lucky enough also to find something that immediately resonates is totally different thing. It's like I won't say it's magic, but of course there are a lot of factors that are involved. But again, if you looking at Netflix, one of the big hit they got last year was K-pop Demon Hunter, which was basically an unknown IP. They Sony Studios developed for them, and it simply resonated because it had all the right elements. But you recognize it has all the right elements only after you've seen it explode. So yeah, K-pop has always been something buzzing in the latest year, but this was the first IPs that really tapped into K-pop in a plausible way. So to develop an IP, of course, you need to have a strong content at the basic, a strong storyteller at the basic. Usually are tied to specific people. Marvel Comics is specifically tied to Stan Lee. If you look at Japan, for example, all the most famous IP that come from Japan are related to manga, so Japanese comic books, and are related, totally related, 100% owned by a single person. Peanuts, for example, totally owned and conceived by Charles Schultz. You need to have a genius that creates the IP. 90% of the time. Star Wars, George Lucas, I can go on for forever. You need to have someone that taps into this type of narrative that finds a story that's worth telling, and also you need to have a little bit of luck, because time has to be right, and not every IP explodes at the right moment, or even in the moment it was conceived.
A great example is the Stranger Things, isn't it? I think that's IP. But I've learned it from my son, basically. He said, Mommy, that was created a long time ago, but it has become popular only now, right? It reached my attention through my child, right? It's interesting because apparently there were about 4 seasons recorded on Netflix, which were lying there and nobody was watching them.
Yeah, it was famous, but for sure, given it had a very long span between one season and another, for sure they lost some traction in the making. But they managed to have an incredible finale, and they gathered all the eyeballs they had from previous season and more. So for sure it has become, IP needs time to develop. You don't grow an IP overnight. Harry Potter, another fantastic example. The books were there for years and years before the first movie came out, and when the movie came out, the phenomenon exploded. Harry Potter was already a phenomenon, but it was multiplied. Same thing with manga. One Piece was an incredible success as a manga, but then it became an even more incredible success as an anime, and now it's a series for Netflix. So
yeah. It's also quite popular for the kids, right? Among the kids. Interesting. So the reason I'm so curious about, IP creation is because there's something that actually attracted my attention from the entertainment perspective. And one of the facts, for example, that Gap, the brand, the clothes brand, has hired a chief entertainment officer into their team to handle their entertainment/marketing activities, or collaborate with the marketing team to create something that most probably has to look like a show, right? And I think so probably one of the reasons is exactly to create their own IPs behind their content, or the show-like content that they're planning to create. So my question is, how can the logic of IPs be brought into brands?
Well, if you look into it, brands are really have a value, have an equity value, have also an IP value. So they have a story to tell. In many cases, they already have it, but they need to tell it. So what's becoming increasingly apparent is that you cannot sell without entertaining in nowadays, because the tension that each and every one of us has is being distracted by many different devices and moments during the day. So you have to be entertaining in order to get the attention, in order to sell, which is the basics of marketing, but it's becoming more deep, because nowadays we are used to be entertained all the time. In the 50s, probably you saw a huge billboard that was enough. Now you need to have a story. You need to be educated to the brand. You need to be willing to interact with the brand, and that's something that every brand needs to do. So every brand needs to build their own IP, their own legacy, their own storytelling. The importance of putting faces or putting a certain style of communication to a company is crucial nowadays. Another good example is Liquid Dot, which is a mineral water company from the US. The sole idea that they have an entertainment, a chief entertaining officer in a mineral water company tells you how much marketing and branding and storytelling is important for them.
Because I think it is just what you've just mentioned, the actual marketing narrative seems to be requiring more attention. We used to, for years, we used to sell the marketing content as being educative first, then probably creating some value, talking to the audience, but it was never enough, I think. That's why this shift is happening. So it requires something more. As you mentioned, it requires a customized voice, not from the perspective of the voice itself, but I mean, who is talking to the audience, how this character is talking to the audience, and through that, the actual message, and also what context this character is put on to be able to tell the story of that particular brand. And that's a really, really complicated process, right? That requires scripting, understanding the brand identity. It requires also understanding not that just the avatar that talks to that audience, but probably creating a new avatar that, can respond to, that audience diversity, or their requirements, of who they're going to listen to, right? So it's not just the face of the founder, which can be a case though.
Yeah, it can. We have, Steve Jobs did it for Apple
exactly.
for many, many
Brilliant
years.
Example, yes.
So it can be, of course, it's dangerous because you need to
Founders change.
Founders change. You have a huge problem. Now Apple has a huge problem in the persona of the CEO. You have he was the voice of Apple for many, many years. And also you have to keep in mind that every time you interact with your customer, especially through media, especially through entertainment, you put at stake everything the customer knows about the brand. So one missed opportunity, one error can resonate throughout all your media. That's the reason why you need scripting, you need storytelling, you need to be more careful in your interaction with the customer, for sure.
I wouldn't even say it's about being careful. It's about, I think, approaching it as approaching it professionally,
strategically,
strategically, comprehensively. So you don't just hire an entertainment officer to tell you the idea. So let's create another Mickey Mouse tomorrow, and let this Mickey Mouse is going to talk as a tech brand. It's not how it works, right? It involves, it involves the creators who are actually working and creating the actual character, analyzing the audience requirements, writing the actual story, rewriting that story, developing that story, placing that character into that story, and only then creating a show-like content out of that. So I think it's a long and quite a complex process, but I really have a hope that this is how we are going to mainstream our content services, our content efforts going forward. So that's why I'm happy we are in this conversation at a very early stage. But it's important to understand these shifts, in my opinion, to be able to get on them from the right, angle.
And at the right moment,
Yeah, exactly, when the brands are ready to absorb that. Look at podcasts, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, 3-5 years ago, nobody was actually using podcast as their activity.
And now they're the regular part of their marketing.
Absolutely regular part, yes. So the Netflix and Warner Brothers deal is not actually happening only in the traditional media business, let's say, in the traditional IP business. What's interesting is that the same structural shift is happening from the opposite direction on YouTube. While platforms consolidate studios, creators are building them. Large creators are investing in physical production facilities, long-term teams, writer's room, and repeatable formats. They're not optimizing videos, they're building IP engines. There's another example that makes this shift very concrete. Industry reporting increasingly describes MrBeast not as a creator, but as a production company. He operates across video, consumer brands, licensing, and live formats with teams, infrastructure, and repeatable IP. At this point, the scale is comparable to a mid-sized studio. What matters here is not an individual success. This is a proof of concept. It shows that the studio model can now build across direct audiences relationship without starting from legacy media. This shift becomes even clearer when creators start partnering directly with legacy media. Fox Entertainment recently announced a multi-year collaboration with Darman Studios to produce 40 scripted microdrama series. This isn't an influencer marketing, it's a formal content production pipeline, placing a creator-led studio alongside traditional television studios in shaping IPs. This line didn't exist 5 years ago. There's another shift happening in the context from the other side, let's say, from the other side of the story, and it's happening on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing large creators starting to act like studios. Right?
Sure.
So I want to get a little bit into that and explore that particular part with you. So when creators start operating like studios, what does it signal to you? What does it tell you about? And do you think it signals you where the production power is moving? Do they really need the professional studios if they are becoming as studios themselves? And remember, all YouTubers have got a direct access to their audiences, right?
You are pointing something that's really, really powerful. I believe that being close to the audience, being close to the actual people that follows you, empowers you at very, very high level. Look at, for example, at MrBeast. MrBeast is claiming that he wants to become the next Disney, and he may actually be on the right track. Does he need studios? Probably not, because probably he's big enough now to develop his own content at the maximum level. We've seen a lot of examples of that. He teamed up with Amazon recently for the Beast games. He opened up his theme park. So no, probably they are the biggest one. They are IPs. They are already IPs, and they are developing brands that can stand the test of time, probably. And that's what I suspect we will increasingly see happen. Even if to become an influencer or a content creator to that level extent, it's becoming increasingly difficult because, of course, competition is very hard.
If you look at MrBeast case, for example, as I say, it's a proof of concept that a large creator can become a studio by itself,
100%.
and it's claimed many times that they are acting as a studio in its own. So, but my question is, when a large creator like MrBeast, for example, start acting as a studio, does it tell you also that being close to the audience is probably more important than the traditional distribution model? Do they start being a competition to somebody like Disney or, let's say, Netflix when it comes to distribution point of view? So how would you interpret that? And will they ever become those competitors?
So the problem, of course, is, again, circling back on at least Warner Brothers, is also owning the distribution. Because if you don't own the distribution, the risk, of course, is that a shift in the algorithm or whatever happens to the platform, if the platform loses credibility of another platforms emerges, you need to move your content. So that's the main risk I see for large content creator. But for sure, given that most likely YouTube won't go away for the time being so close to the audience gives them an accessibility and access to the public, also to the ability to create content that engages them, because they are living literally day by day creating content that has to engage the public. So they have a constant pulse of the public, way more than Netflix, and for sure way more than a reality like Warner Brothers. So yes, they are in a position where they can really be competitors to those reality.
To traditional consumption and distribution models, and the platforms. So having an audience that is that close, but they are actually renting sort of this audience from YouTube, you can say so? Or is it YouTube who is actually in need of somebody like MrBeast to create their content on their platform? This is also an interesting
that's an interesting
angle,
question.
right?
That's an interesting. In case of MrBeast or iShowSpeed, for example, for quoting another, that's huge. Probably YouTube needs them more than they need YouTube at the moment. So
what makes you think so, though?
Because honestly, when you reach a certain level, you have the ability, in my mind, to shift people from one channel to another. Say another TikTok gets born tomorrow and it becomes incredibly successful. Probably, if you are a very good content creator, you can shift your audience. If you are very big, of course, if you are medium-sized, not so much, because you still have a friction. So it's gonna be increasingly complicated to do that. But I think that right now, large content creator have an edge on the platform, because we have examples of people with literally 10, 20, 50 million followers. So it's a force to be reckoned with. And
what is the Netflix audience and reach? If if just to compare these things together.
Oh well, way more. The Netflix audience is way more. It's probably billion. But those are ables, but are not loyal followers. So I believe it's something. If we learn something, is that having 2 million hardcore fans or 20 million hardcore fans can be more relevant than having billions of eyeballs
subscribers,
billions of subscribers or eyeballs that watches your show. Because at the end of the day, people on your YouTube channel are there for you. People on your platform are there for your content. So if the content is not good enough, they're gonna leave. They're gonna leave the content creator if he does something bad, for sure. But the real value is in the person that's making the content, not in the platform itself. If Netflix tomorrow loses its flagship shows, it's as VOD service as all the others.
So let's get back to an example of MrBeast. In this case, in this particular brand, what acts as an IP? Is it the products that he creates, let's say MrBeast games, or is it the MrBeast as a brand itself?
Is MrBeast as a brand himself. He is the IP. Most definitely is the IP. And of course, it echoes in the product he creates. It's very similar, if you want, since I'm Italian, I have to tell, to the fashion world. Giorgio Armani was a brand in itself, but it also had a very, very amazing equity with the products he created. But it was a brand in itself. Valentino was a brand in itself. So it's kind of the same thing. You are your, let's say, seal of excellence in yourself. You are your brand. And that's what makes it risky also, of course, for them. We've got a reputational risk that's very, very high. So it's very difficult to determine the value. If you ask me what's the value of MrBeast, I don't know. It's very difficult. I mean, we can guess, but it's very dependent on what he does. Tomorrow he gets arrested and he goes to jail, the value goes to zero.
So I actually, one of the open questions that I asked in one of my posts is whether the world is let's say the digital world, or the world that is watching and consuming his content, are they ready for the grown up or for the adult MrBeast? Because he started his career and he actually became famous and popular at the age of probably 18, I think.
Yeah.
He is now, I think, closer to 30, if not more.
Yeah.
He is already an adult man. But I mean, probably what I mean by that is not how he looks, but rather his values that he translates through his content. And I think the values that made him popular at 18 plus, and the values, let's say, of the man who's evolving and grown up should be different. But is his audience ready for that? And is his business ready for his brand to mature? And how do they usually address when the brand is so very much linked, or when the IP is so very much linked to the actual person when it comes to YouTubers.
That's a very sensitive point, actually. But it's true also for again for manga IPs, for example. People that fell in love with One Piece. One Piece is still rolling, and they were like 8 years old when the manga started. Now they're in their 30s. I believe there's kind of a nostalgia effect. So you grow increasingly attached to the brands you consume, to the IP you love. Of course, if we're talking about the life of a person, is a little bit different, because a story you can. I mean, probably the content will shift a little bit, the value can shift a little bit, but they're in the context of the story and the characters you know. When the IP is the person that's making the content, that's very intriguing. Also true that the hardcore fans of MrBeast probably have matured with him. They literally grew up with him. So it's like when you're following a music star. If you were following David Bowie throughout the whole of his career, he evolved a lot. But if you're an hardcore fan, you stay a fan. Look at Madonna, for example, another incredible artist that had a very, very long career. I believe that hardcore fans stay with the idea, with the content, with the brand more than the person. So they follow. They will. I believe they will follow him. They will make an effort to follow him.
I would say this is our logic that tells us this, but you'll be amazed. Like, for example, my recent participation in 1 Billion Follows Summit, for example,
Yes.
where he participated, he actually demonstrated his physical audience, and his physical audience are represented by mostly parents who know him
Through
their children. And you would find that he is very popular amongst, let's say, kids who are 10 below plus,
Toys.
let's say.
Toys is the answer. Also, my son loves him, and
There we go.
Yeah.
It's the merch
It's
more
the
than,
merch.
yeah. So it's how they use the actual IP and how they create the businesses out of that. It's not the content itself, probably.
Yeah, most probably the aspect is there. Was also true for Star Wars, by the way. There's a concept in transmedia that's called extractability. So basically the idea of being able to take the IP to the outside world through elements you wear, through elements you use in your day-by-day use. And that's basically merch. That's the definition of merchandising. And the true power of transmedia is that sometimes you can fall in love with an IP, with something that's an element of the IP taken out of context that you simply fell in love with because it's beautifully made, for example, or it's well
Or it has certain features and traits that relate to you, or, you know, unpack some of the things that you would like to have, but then this particular character can act. Has got
resonates.
freedom, yes.
Yeah, I believe that MrBeast as really resonates with the audience. So he's able to create products that resonates with the audience. And it's true for children and adults also. So he is the brand in itself. The decision making, I believe it's a large part of it is done by him. So he has good taste, which is something which tells something.
So what is the favorite part of your son loves about MrBeast? You mentioned that he loves you.
The little figurines, the monster figurines.
Really? I've never even seen them.
Yeah, they come in this strange lab. They are like a crazy laboratory when you create and you see these little creatures emerge from the ooze, and he loves them. He falls in love with them. We have like 100 at home.
For marketers and brand builders, the lesson is clear. Entertainment is not a tactic you add at the end. It's the infrastructure through which cultural attention flows. And the real strategic question now is not whether you create content, but whether you own the story or depend on someone else to carry it for you.